Your heart already knows this year is different because the pain you've been carrying didn't come to destroy you. It came to wake you up. And 2026 is the moment where excuses die and truth takes control. This year doesn't care about your comfort, your past, or your fear. It only rewards discipline, courage, and hunger. While others complain, you grind. While others sleep, you build. While others hope, you execute. This is the year where winners separate themselves by doing what losers refuse to do day after day when no one is watching. You don't need motivation anymore. You need standards. You don't need validation. You need results. Weak habits will expose weak minds, and strong routines will forge unstoppable men. Every morning in 2026 asks one question: are you willing to suffer now to dominate later? Because average lives are built on comfort, and legendary lives are built on sacrifice. This year will break the undisciplined and crown the relentless. Decide now, no more delays, no more second chances, no more waiting for permission. You either rise with pain or stay small with excuses, and 2026 will remember exactly which side you chose. Discipline is the foundation of freedom because without it, your life is controlled by impulses, moods, excuses, and reactions you don't even realize are running you. Most people think freedom means doing whatever they feel like, whenever they feel like it, but that is the biggest lie ever sold to weak minds. That isn't freedom, that's slavery to emotion. When you wake up and let tiredness decide your actions, tiredness owns you. When fear decides whether you take risks, fear owns you. When pleasure decides your habits, pleasure owns you. Discipline is the moment you take that control back. It is choosing what must be done, even when every emotion inside you screams to quit. And that choice, repeated daily, is what builds real power. A disciplined person doesn't need motivation because they don't negotiate with their feelings. They understand that emotions are temporary, unreliable, and often deceptive. Feelings change with sleep, weather, comfort, and praise, but discipline stays solid. Discipline is what allows you to train when you're exhausted, work when you're bored, stay focused when distractions are everywhere, and remain calm when pressure is crushing. It creates structure in chaos and direction in confusion. When you are disciplined, your mind stops being a battlefield and becomes a weapon. You no longer ask, "Do I feel like it?" You ask, "What must be done?" And then you do it. Without discipline, freedom is impossible because your life becomes reactive. You react to insults instead of staying composed. You react to setbacks instead of adapting. You react to temptation instead of resisting. That reaction-based life keeps you small, predictable, and controllable. The world favors people who can control themselves under stress, delay gratification, and stay consistent when results are slow. Discipline gives you that edge. It teaches you patience, restraint, and long-term thinking. It allows you to plant seeds today that others are too lazy to plant and harvest later while they're still complaining. Discipline is also the bridge between potential and reality. Everyone has dreams, but only disciplined people turn dreams into outcomes. Talent without discipline fades. Intelligence without discipline wastes itself. Confidence without discipline turns into arrogance. Discipline sharpens everything you already have. It turns average effort into extraordinary results through consistency. Small disciplined actions repeated daily will always defeat bursts of emotional motivation. Motivation comes and goes, but discipline stays. And that's why disciplined people always win in the long run. When you live without discipline, your emotions dictate your self-respect. One bad day turns into a bad week. One mistake turns into quitting entirely. One moment of comfort destroys months of progress. Discipline protects you from yourself. It gives you rules when your mind tries to betray you. It gives you boundaries when temptation is loud. It gives you clarity when doubt creeps in. With discipline, you stop being at war with your own weaknesses and start building over them. True freedom is waking up knowing you control your body, your time, your focus, and your reactions. It's knowing you can push through discomfort, say no to distractions, and keep promises to yourself. That confidence changes how you walk, how you speak, and how the world responds to you. People respect disciplined individuals because they sense reliability, strength, and direction. Opportunities come to those who are prepared, not emotional. Success trusts discipline, not excuses. Discipline doesn't restrict your life, it expands it. It gives you options. It gives you leverage. It gives you the ability to choose your future instead of accepting whatever life throws at you. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you reclaim a piece of your freedom. And over time, those choices compound into a life where you are no longer ruled by fear, laziness, or emotion, but led by purpose, structure, and unbreakable self-control. Discipline is the foundation of freedom because without it, your emotions quietly take control of your life, steering your decisions in directions you never consciously chose. Most people believe emotions are guides, but emotions are reactions, not leaders. They rise and fall based on comfort, fear, hunger, praise, rejection, and exhaustion. If your actions depend on how you feel, then your life depends on circumstances you don't control. That is not freedom. That is dependence. True freedom begins the moment you decide that feelings no longer get the final vote on your behavior. Discipline is that decision made permanent through action. When discipline is absent, emotions become masters. Anger makes you destroy opportunities. Laziness convinces you to delay important work. Fear keeps you silent when you should speak and passive when you should act. Pleasure pulls you toward short-term comfort at the expense of long-term growth. These emotions don't ask for permission, they simply take over if you let them. Discipline is the force that puts boundaries around them. It doesn't eliminate emotions, but it places them in their proper role. You still feel fear, but you act anyway. You still feel tired, but you move forward. You still feel tempted, but you choose restraint. That choice is freedom in its purest form. A disciplined person understands that emotions are information, not instructions. Feeling unmotivated doesn't mean you should stop. Feeling uncomfortable doesn't mean something is wrong. Feeling afraid doesn't mean you are incapable. Discipline teaches you to act based on principle rather than impulse. Principles don't change with mood. They don't disappear under pressure. They don't collapse when things get difficult. When your life is built on discipline, consistency replaces chaos and clarity replaces confusion. Without discipline, even success becomes dangerous. Money without discipline creates addiction. Power without discipline creates arrogance. Freedom without discipline creates self-destruction. That's why so many people get what they want and still ruin their lives. They confuse freedom with lack of structure. In reality, structure is what protects freedom. Discipline is the framework that allows you to enjoy success without being consumed by it. It gives you control over your habits, your time, and your reactions, which are the three things that determine the direction of your life. Discipline also creates emotional stability. When you rely on discipline, your identity no longer shifts with your mood. You don't feel strong one day and worthless the next. You don't collapse after failure or become reckless after small wins. You stay grounded because your actions are anchored to commitment, not emotion. That stability becomes confidence, and confidence becomes authority over your own life. You stop seeking validation because your self-respect comes from keeping promises to yourself. Being a slave to emotions means constantly negotiating with yourself. I'll start tomorrow. I deserve a break. Just this once won't matter. Discipline ends those negotiations. It simplifies life. You decide once and then you execute daily. That simplicity is liberating. It removes mental noise and conserves energy. Instead of wasting strength debating whether to act, you invest that strength into action itself. Over time, this creates momentum, and momentum creates freedom. Discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in action. It is choosing long-term pride over short-term pleasure. It is protecting your future self from the weaknesses of your present self. Every disciplined action is a message to your mind that you are in control, and the mind believes what you repeatedly prove through behavior. Eventually, discipline becomes identity, and identity becomes destiny. Freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want in the moment. Freedom is the ability to do what is necessary, even when it's hard, boring, painful, or uncomfortable. Without discipline, emotions will always pull you toward the easiest path, and the easiest path always leads to regret. With discipline, you choose the harder path now so life becomes easier later. That is the trade most people are unwilling to make, and that is why most people never experience real freedom. Discipline is the foundation of freedom because it is the only force strong enough to keep your emotions from hijacking your destiny. Emotions are powerful, fast, and persuasive, but they are also short-sighted. They want comfort now, relief now, pleasure now, and validation now. If you allow them to lead, your life becomes a series of reactions instead of a deliberate journey. One bad mood can erase progress. One moment of fear can stop growth. One wave of comfort can delay success for years. Discipline is what slows everything down and puts you back in the driver's seat. When discipline is missing, emotions become excuses disguised as logic. You don't say, I'm weak. You say, I'm tired. You say, I'm afraid. You say, it's not the right time. You don't say, oh, I lack commitment. You say, I'll do it when I feel ready. These emotions sound reasonable, but they quietly steal your future. Discipline cuts through that noise. It doesn't ask how you feel, it asks what the goal requires. And that shift changes everything. The moment you act despite emotion, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your impulses. A person ruled by emotions lives inconsistently. Some days they feel unstoppable, other days they disappear. That inconsistency destroys trust in yourself. You stop believing your own promises because you've broken them too many times. Discipline rebuilds that trust. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you deposit confidence into your identity. Over time, that confidence becomes unshakable because it is built on evidence, not hype. You know who you are because you've seen what you can do under pressure. Freedom is not comfort. Comfort is easy, predictable, and safe, but it comes at a high cost. It dulls hunger, weakens resilience, and keeps you dependent on external conditions. Discipline introduces controlled discomfort, and that discomfort strengthens you. It teaches you that pain is survivable, boredom is temporary, and effort is rewarding. Once you learn that, fear loses its power. You no longer avoid challenges because you trust your ability to endure them. That trust is freedom. Without discipline, emotions dictate your habits, and habits dictate your life. Poor habits feel good now but punish you later. Strong habits feel hard now but reward you later. Discipline is choosing which pain you're willing to pay. Either you suffer the pain of discipline or you suffer the pain of regret. There is no third option. The disciplined person chooses their pain intentionally, and that intention is what separates leaders from followers. Discipline also protects your vision. Big goals require time, patience, and consistency, but emotions hate waiting. They want instant results and quick wins. When progress feels slow, emotions tell you to quit or change direction. Discipline keeps you aligned when results are invisible. It reminds you that growth is happening even when you can't see it yet. That patience allows compounding to work in your favor, and compounding is one of the greatest freedoms in life. Small disciplined actions repeated daily eventually create massive results that look like luck to the undisciplined. Being a slave to emotions means being controlled by the external world. Praise makes you arrogant. Criticism makes you collapse. Failure makes you quit. Success makes you lazy. Discipline creates internal stability. You are no longer shaken by opinions or outcomes because your self-worth is rooted in effort, not approval. You measure yourself by standards, not feelings. That independence is real freedom because no one can manipulate you through emotion when you control your own behavior. Discipline is not about being harsh, it's about being honest. Honest about what you want, honest about what it takes, and honest about the gap between where you are and where you need to be. Emotions lie to protect comfort. Discipline tells the truth to build strength. And the truth, even when uncomfortable, always leads to freedom. In the end, discipline is the act of choosing your future self over your present feelings. It is the quiet decision made daily that says, I am in control. Without it, emotions will always rule you. With it, you become ungovernable, unshakable, and truly free. Discipline is the foundation of freedom because it is the only thing that stands between you and a life dictated by emotional impulse. Emotions are not evil, but they are unreliable. They change with circumstances, fatigue, hunger, fear, praise, rejection, and comfort. If your decisions depend on how you feel in the moment, then your life becomes unpredictable and weak. One day you are driven, the next day you are stuck. One challenge inspires you, another defeats you. Discipline removes that instability by giving you rules to follow when emotions try to take control. When discipline is missing, emotions quietly become rulers. You don't notice it at first because it feels natural. You rest when you feel tired. You quit when things feel hard. You delay when fear appears. And you indulge when pleasure calls. Each decision feels harmless, but together they create a pattern of avoidance. Over time, that pattern becomes identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who tries instead of someone who finishes. Discipline breaks that cycle by forcing consistency where emotions would prefer comfort. It teaches you to act first and feel later. A disciplined person understands that emotions are temporary visitors, not permanent authorities. Feeling unmotivated doesn't mean progress must stop. Feeling scared doesn't mean danger is real. Feeling uncomfortable doesn't mean something is wrong. Discipline allows you to experience emotion without obeying it. You acknowledge how you feel, but you don't surrender your standards. That separation is powerful. It means your behavior is guided by values and goals instead of moods. That is where freedom begins. Without discipline, freedom becomes self-destruction. Unlimited choice without self-control leads to addiction, chaos, and regret. That is why people with no structure often feel trapped even though they can do whatever they want. They are trapped by habits they can't break, impulses they can't resist, and emotions they can't manage. Discipline provides structure, and structure creates safety. It protects your future from your weakest moments. It allows you to enjoy freedom without being consumed by it. Discipline also builds emotional strength. When you consistently do difficult things, you train your nervous system to stay calm under pressure. You stop panicking when things get hard. You stop overreacting to setbacks. You stop seeking escape when discomfort appears. This emotional control gives you an advantage in every area of life. Relationships improve because you don't react impulsively. Work improves because you stay focused under stress. Personal growth accelerates because challenges no longer intimidate you. Emotional mastery is a direct result of disciplined action. Being a slave to emotions means constantly bargaining with yourself. You promise change, then break that promise the moment discomfort appears. Over time, this destroys self-trust. You stop believing in your own words. Discipline rebuilds that trust one action at a time. Every time you follow through despite resistance, you send a message to your mind that you are reliable. That reliability becomes confidence, and confidence becomes authority over your own life. You no longer need external motivation because you trust your internal commitment. Discipline is also what creates long-term freedom. Short-term pleasure feels like freedom, but it always comes with a delayed cost. Discipline feels restrictive at first, but it creates options later. Financial discipline creates independence. Physical discipline creates health and energy. Mental discipline creates clarity and focus. Time discipline creates control over your schedule. Each form of discipline removes a future limitation. The undisciplined chase freedom in the moment and lose it over time. The disciplined delay pleasure and gain freedom permanently. Emotion-driven lives are fragile. Praise can inflate them, criticism can destroy them, failure can end them. Disciplined lives are stable. They are not shaken by opinions or outcomes because their foundation is effort and consistency. When your self-worth is built on discipline, no one can manipulate you through emotion. You are no longer controlled by fear, approval, or comfort. That independence is rare and it is powerful. In the end, discipline is not about control for the sake of control. It is about choosing who leads your life. Either your emotions decide your actions or your standards do. Without discipline, emotions will always win and you will always be reacting instead of creating. With discipline, you take ownership of your behavior, your habits, and your future. That ownership is freedom. Remember this every single day you wake up. You are choosing who controls your life. If you let emotions lead, your future will always look like your comfort zone, small, familiar, and full of regret. Emotions are loud in the moment, but silent when the consequences arrive. Discipline is quiet, demanding, and uncomfortable, but it speaks loudly in results. It shows up when motivation disappears and strength feels distant. It is what keeps you moving when excuses feel logical and quitting feels justified. The people who win are not the ones who feel the best. They are the ones who act despite feeling the worst. Discipline doesn't make life harder. It makes life predictable, and predictability creates power. When you control your actions, you control your habits. When you control your habits, you control your character. And when you control your character, the world has no choice but to respect you. Every disciplined decision is a brick, and over time, those bricks build a life no emotion can tear down. Comfort will promise you peace and deliver regret. Discipline will demand sacrifice and deliver freedom. The lesson is simple and unforgiving. Either you master your emotions through discipline, or you will spend your entire life being mastered by them.